Greetings one and all. Super Wednesdays here in the Holy Land, Holy Apple, Holy Hilltop. We are on the second to last day of the month of Cheshvan, 29th of Cheshvan. Wishing everybody a good month, a good year, a good life. We don't stop at the, person that wishes you good morning. What about the afternoon, Jack? What about the evening? So I like to say Chaim Tovim. You should have a good life. Then you take care of all the, you've taken care of all the issues here. So, good week, a good month, and a good life. Okay, we are on, with God's help, we are on part 2 here, banning circumcision. Any truth to it? Just a quick, if you didn't see the first part, as always, I like to give a quick summary in order that people shouldn't feel that, if I miss the first part, then I can't watch the second or the third. Some classes even go longer than that, 4, 5, 6 parts. So a real, one of these 3-minute summaries of the first part. We spoke about in Europe, there are various countries that are contemplating a ban on circumcision. In America, there are different groups that travel around America, travel around different states, different cities, and go around and protest against circumcision, calling it cruelty, rape, sex abuse, child abuse. And 'tis the season. We are at the heels of Hanukkah in another 3 weeks, with God's help. One of the 3 decrees during the period of the Syrian Greeks against the Jews in the land of Israel was that the Jewish people were not allowed to perform circumcision. So it's a good time to discuss this issue. We spoke about in the first class how Abraham there are 3 legs Judaism stands, just like this camera that is filming this show has these 3 legs. So too, the 3 foundations of Judaism is Abraham, kindness, Isaac is strict judgment, and last but not least is a mixture of kindness and strict judgment, which is mercy, somewhere in the middle over there, Jacob. Now, we see that according to our sources, according to the Torah, that Abraham was definitely the foundation of kindness, his hospitality, his conversion of approximately 1 million people with his wife, Sarah. He was the tremendous foundation of kindness. However, we spoke about characteristic traits. If you have one that really stands out, this is usually a very, very dangerous situation because of the fact that you're not balanced. We know that a person stands on 2 legs. And if you're only on 1 leg, then you're a cripple. It doesn't matter whether it's a left or right leg. So therefore, Abraham was tremendous when it came to kindness. He was very extreme when it came to kindness. However, this is a big danger. We spoke about in the Torah, it is listed that various illicit, illegal relations, sexual relations, are called in the Torah, are called chesed, kindness, or prostitution is called also by the name of kindness because it's being kind, selling oneself to many clients. So that is called chesed in the Torah. Too much of this, when it's in an extreme amount, it becomes extremely dangerous. A cousin of mine was on her way to help the poor Arabs in Gaza because she has a good Jewish, kind heart. So thank God she called me before she closed her. She made her decision 100%, but Anyways, in the end, she ended up in Torah, in the birthright program of Torah. So, big problem. There was just a person this past week, a Jew that was thrown out of Israel, an Israeli thrown out of Israel for being part of the BDS, or as I call it, the BS movement. So he was thrown out of the country. So we have leftists, we have Jews, so-called Jews that egg on and try to help the Arabs in destroying the land of Israel and the Jewish people. So they are tremendous people of kindness. However, they are tremendously unbalanced, and therefore that leads to tremendous atrocities. Okay, so God has to balance Abraham because it's dangerous. If you're just kindness, extremely dangerous. Imagine two parents, they're just whatever their kid wants. They walk into a store, kid wants the iPhone number 25 in the line, smartphone, no problem. Goes into a store, he wants all the candy, no problem. What's going to be with his teeth, what's going to be with his health, what's going to be with his mental health. What kind of kid? That's like, it's like a jungle. We're raising an animal here. Everything that he wants and desires, his parents can't say no because they're kind and have a tremendous heart. That is destroying a child, not being kind to a child. So we had to balance Abraham. How do we do that? Three of the 10 tests were on the exact opposite side of Abraham, which called for an amount of harshness, cruelty, callousness, insensitivity towards others, exactly what Abraham needed to balance himself. So those were, number one, he had to throw out his son Ishmael out of the house. Number two, he had to circumcise himself and others. And number three is he had to sacrifice his son, almost, on the mountain of Moriah in Jerusalem. So these were three opposites of Abraham. They called for the opposite characteristic trait. We needed here some form of harshness, cruelty, insensitivity, callousness to overcome one's natural tendency. That was in the first class. Okay, let's move forward. Today's class. We have to understand there's a tremendous book. It's called Orchot Tzadikim, the ways of the righteous, the path of the righteous. Who wrote it? Nobody knows. You have to understand there are many books in the Jewish world that we don't know who were the authors of these books. Why did they forget to write their name? Like sometimes you're signing over a check and you forget your name. Sometimes it's not really by accident because you just don't have any money in your account. It's a slight problem. I forgot to sign my name? I forgot the date? I'm sorry about it. Here, I'll write you another check. Yeah. So, it wasn't like a person forgot. There are tremendous, great people, humble people, just like Moses. The three most humble people in Judaism were, if you look at the name, Adam. That's the acronym of A is Abraham, and then D is David, and you have and M, Adam, is Moses. So those were the three most humble people. So you have many of them. For example, one day I came into the yeshiva and I noticed about 10 books on the shelves. A book called Mishkan Evneh. So I looked 10 books, brand new, and I look in all of them, and there's no name. And in fact, it's commonplace that when a person writes a book of Torah, you receive some type of letter from other rabbis in order that we should know that the author and the book and the content of the book is something that's suitable for a Torah Jew. So you look, in the book in the beginning, there's like 10 letters from different rabbis, the leading rabbis of our generation. And when it says the person's supposed to say the name, like we know the author, and then it's blank. We have 10 letters from different rabbis, so they know who the rabbi is, but none of us know. Anyways, it took me a few years, and I finally found the secret. Somebody told me the secret of who wrote these 10 books. For example, the Chazon Ish also wrote a book, Chazon Ish, okay, Aleph, until somebody figured out that Aleph, Yud, Shin, those letters were his name, but he did not put his name in that book out of modesty, humbleness. Same thing here is Orchot Tzadikim, an amazing book, an amazing ethical, characteristic perfection book. Coaching today is the word. So, we don't know who it is. But what he does is he goes through almost all the characteristic traits and he brings how great they are. But in the end, the last couple of pages, he brings when that characteristic trait is no good. And then he has terrible characteristic traits, and he goes on, but in the end, he brings on when this terrible characteristic trait is needed. So in other words, friends, there's a tremendous lesson here. In Hebrew, characteristic traits are called midot. Midah is not you would never translate it as a characteristic trait. You would translate it as a measurement, and that's exactly the translation, correct. Because there are no such things in life as a bad trait. There are traits, and each one of them has their time, place, and amount. But there's no such thing as across the board a bad trait. Anger. Is it bad? Yes, most of the time to be angry is bad. However, is it a bad trait? Definitely not. There are times that a Jew must get angry. To be happy. I know there's a song that mitzvah gedola liot b'simcha tamid. Yeah, you're supposed to be happy all the time. Is that true? Not true. There are certain times.
Sorry, but and the Rambam says that anger is something he should never be. No, in the Hilkot De'ah.
There are certain things that he writes that not that you need to be angry, but you should be on the inside. You should be calm, but on the outside you have to show an angry face. A child runs into the street after running after a ball. If you come up to the guy and hugging him and smiling, he's going to run into the street again, and next time might not be so lucky. So therefore, there's a concept of a facial anger. So there's a time that a person, a teacher, or a parent figure, you see something wrong, you have to show anger, a facial anger. We should try on the inside to keep calm, keep as much as possible calm. There are other opinions that that there is room also for anger even on the inside. Yeah, there's two schools of thought, but everyone agrees that we need anger. Question is, should it be an exterior or interior? It doesn't matter.
So when Pinchas saw Zimri and Cosby, he was angry, or?
Doesn't say necessarily that he was angry. He said that he was zealous. It doesn't say that he was angry. There's a word in the Torah for being angry, but it doesn't say that by him. It does say with other people that they were angry, but with him it says that he was zealous, because when you see something that's not correct, when you see something that, I'm saying there's something that shouldn't be done. So there's something here that's not according to the law, what should be, and that bothers us that somebody's taking advantage of somebody else or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean that he did it out of anger. Okay, so this book, this unbelievable book, The Ways of the Righteous, he goes over every single characteristic trait, tells how good it is or how bad it is, but even the good when it's needed, and even the bad when it's needed, or the good when it's not needed. So we're talking today, one of those signs at the demonstration was the biggest sign was sign of cruelty. Circumcision is cruelty. So let's look into the characteristic trait of cruelty. Cruelty, it's a bad thing. To be cruel to even animals is a bad thing. How much more so towards people? However, with that said, let's look at the words of the path, the ways of the righteous, and look. After a few pages of telling how bad it is, he says the following. Up until this point, we've spoken about how detrimental cruelty is to a person for his worshiping of God and living. However, like every other characteristic trait, there is a time and a place and a measurement that we need cruelty, harshness, callousness. When is that? For example, against the wicked. When a person is dealing with wicked people, if you're going to play Mr. Nice Guy, okay, you're going to be stepped over. You're going to be stepped on. So therefore, straight out, the Orchot Tzadikim in this book, he writes that God created cruelty for a purpose. And that purpose is when you see wicked people, okay, be cruel against these wicked people. Because if you're not cruel against the wicked, then they're going to be wicked against the merciful. So don't let them get away with that. When a judge puts away a person for 30, 40 years, I'm sure, he's not dancing in his, in the courtroom. But he has to be cruel in order to be merciful for the population on the streets. He got to put this guy away. Because if this guy gets back on the street, most people come back second, third, fourth, fifth time. It's kind of like divorce. People, in California, the divorce rate is 100 and something percent. So I couldn't understand how could something be over 100%. But then I saw in small lighting that there's people that are divorced many, many times. So that's how it could be 110%. So we need the judge in certain circumstances to use this cruelty, so to speak, or harshness, in order to be merciful for the population at large. Another example he gives in his book is that when a person is a judge and he has a family member before him, so the natural tendency is, well, because it's my cousin or my aunt or my uncle, I'm going to be lenient with that person. Here you need that harshness, the cruelty, in order that judgment should be true. And whether it's a relative or not, you gotta tell the truth. Also, a person on themselves. Especially today. People today are such marshmallows. People today are marshmallows. Or in my day, we used to call them, what was that? Charmin toilet paper, remember? It was so fun to press that Charmin toilet paper, that was the commercial. People today are like this, this toilet paper or these marshmallows. People today have you look at a person in a wrong way, you could the guy could commit suicide on you, they're going to drag you into court. You caused this guy, I never talked to him in my life. No, but he left a letter and he said, this person looked at me. I wasn't looking at anybody, just looking at my phone. That's the only thing people are looking today is at their phones, at that screen on the phone. They ain't looking at you. You're so vain, you probably think the song is about you, Carly Simon once said. So, the Orchot Tzadikim writes, beautiful, that we need to be harsh towards ourselves. Not to allow ourselves to become soft and to become what we call in Hebrew mefunakim, spoiled. And that is really the generation of today. Because you think about it, life, the standard of living today, kings who lived 400 or 500 years ago or 200 years ago even, are not on this living standard. Kings and monarchs of different countries, they are not on the standard that an average Joe is today. So it's very, very difficult to have kids that are willing to give. Rabbi Kahana, parents would always come and said, listen, what's your secret? Because we can't get our kids off their blanks, and you're able not only to get them off their blanks, but they're also willing to sacrifice. You give a person a cause, you give a person a reason, and they're willing to do it, especially kids. They're much more idealistic than people that are over the hill, which today is like 15 or 16, you're already not so idealistic anymore. That's the way it runs. So this is an amazing idea. We have to be tough on ourselves. I'll always remember that when I first came to the Sinai Desert in the Amit Yeshiva, I couldn't understand it. Coming from the States, I was maybe in Israel for a year, and then I went down to the Sinai Desert in order to fight against the withdrawal from the Sinai Desert. Israel was giving the Sinai Desert away to the Egyptians some 30-some years ago. So I went down to the yeshiva to learn and also to help fight against the withdrawal. So I remember walking to the yeshiva, and everyone is sitting on benches learning. Kind of like here, benches learning. So I couldn't understand what's the deal. I'm used to coming from the States. I'm used to, you have cushions and it's kind of comfortable to sit down. And what are these benches over here like? Old time benches. Give me some of that old time benching. So after learning there for a year, I understood why they had benches. Because if you have cushions, that's the way you become. You become like a marshmallow. You become the cushion. If you're sitting too much on a cushiony and comfortable chairs, you become cushiony and too comfortable. And in this yeshiva, they wanted us to be tough. So in order to be tough, you got to sit on these uncomfortable benches, and that makes you tough. So we have to use harshness against ourselves. We want to go out to the store and we want to have for the first dish, we would like to have, chocolate. And for the second part of the meal, we want to have ice cream. And then, right, but you got to stand up and say, listen, I'm not going to buy this garbage. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to eat this terrible tasting, I can't believe it. I was one of these junk food junkies, back then. Some of the things I eat today, it's just unbelievable. What in the world is this? How can anybody eat this Rice Krispies? No sugar, no salt. Try that for breakfast, what do I do with this? Rice milk? Or it's just heavy duty stuff here. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, comes Rabbeinu Yonah, and he just knocks the ball out of the stadium over here. In Tractate Brachot, Blessings, page 61, side 2, it says in the Talmud that a Jew must love God with both hearts. Usually when you're trying to make an impression on a girl or a guy, so you draw a heart, not necessarily two hearts. Person has one heart. Some people don't have any heart, but that's a different subject, it's a different class. But what's this two hearts? How should we how should we love God with two hearts? I got one. No. So the Talmud tells us, what is this two hearts? We have two hearts. One is a good inclination and the other is a bad. So you gotta worship God with the good inclination that I get, that I understand, I dig it. But what's worshiping God with evil inclination? It's evil. Stay away from us, danger. Get away. No. We must worship God with our evil inclination, but it's evil, right? But God created it to learn from it and to utilize it in certain circumstances, just like characteristic traits. So there is a place for the evil inclination. In fact, an unbelievable, on the way here I was talking with Brother Moshe, talking about future times. So we know that the Talmud tells us that the evil inclination will be slaughtered. Is that so? It says it in the Talmud. That is so, but on a certain level. There will still be a level of evil inclination in order that people procreate. Amazing. You look at that Gemara, you look at the Talmud, and you think that it's all over. That's all, folks. That's all for the evil inclination. No, there's still going to be a need for a degree of this evil inclination in order to keep the world going. So that's what. So most of it, it will be destroyed, but still we need it. So how do you? Rabbeinu Yonah comes by, and he just hits the ball out of the park. He says, "How do I worship God with my evil inclination?" I'll tell you. When a person is cruel to the wicked, he is worshiping God with his evil inclination. God created this cruelty, harshness, callousness, whatever you like to call it, in order to use it during, hopefully we won't need to use it, but in a person's life, there comes a time when you got to make a stand, and you got to stand up to the plate, and you got to hit that ball. So there are times when we have to be cruel, and that is against the wicked. Because if we allow them to continue, they will destroy themselves, their communities, and in the end, the world. Look at the generations of the flood, or Sodom and Gomorrah. They were allowed to continue. Nobody put a stop to them. There were not righteous people to rebuke them. And the rest is history. Okay? So we see there is a place for cruelty in life. Number 3. Listen to this. It's amazing. My printer doesn't work. Actually, I'm low on ink. So I was not able to get this out. But look it up. It's really amazing. I was amazed. I knew in the back of my mind there was something about, may their memories be erased, about the Nazis in Germany. There was something with them, with animals, that they were like animal lovers. Something in the back of my mind. I remember maybe a class I heard, when I was a kid or something.
Hitler was a vegetarian.
Oh, there we go.
He was a vegetarian.
He was a vegetarian.
He loved animals.
He prohibited animal testing.
Right.
They only tested
There were many laws, look it up, there were many laws that they were passing or about to pass as far as, in fact, one of the reasons given for Hitler's hate against the Jewish people was that they did not have any distinction between people and animals. That the Jews had a distinction he didn't have between animals and people, and that bothered. And there's opinion there that that's why he went out to destroy the Jewish people. He had his famous dog named Blondie. Famous pictures with him, with his dog. He tried to ban hunting. He hated hunters. Folks, he's a vegetarian. Like meat? God forbid. You took an animal, chicken? Out of here. Not only that, folks, put on that seatbelt here, if you haven't done it already. There were various Germans that when they were tried for cruelty against animals. They were put in concentration camps and killed. Yitkadav yitkada shmei rabbah. Amazing. He went out and killed 6 million Jews. And he puts to death Germans, Gentiles, that had some issue with animals, that were cruel to animals. So he's Mr. Merciful to animals. And look at him to human beings. How many millions of people were killed during the Second World War? Leaving aside 6 million Jews, how many people? So we see that you have to, very dangerous. It says about such people like these Nazis and Hitler, may his name be erased. It says exactly our sages tell us that a person that is merciful to the cruel, in the end will be cruel to the merciful. Why? Because everybody has, as we've spoken today so far, everybody has, when God created us, He created us with a certain amount of cruelty, harshness. And that was made in order to come out at certain minority times during life. If it doesn't come out in the right, at the right times, we still have it, and it has to come out. Because God created us with these intrinsic traits, and they will come out. So if you don't let them come out at the right time, they're going to come out at the wrong time. That was the Nazis, their love of animals, hate of the Jews. Amazing. Last but not least, number 4, it says in Psalms 44:23, God, we have been killed. We have died for you all day. Now we know that Jewish history, if you look at the Chinese people and see what the population of the Chinese is, understand that should be the Jewish population today. If not for all the Holocaust, pogroms, inquisitions, and you name it, the Jewish people today, who are an ancient people like the Chinese, should be the amount of people in China. But we're not. So, what is this? Even though that it's been terrible, last 2,000 years of history, but all day, Jews are being killed all day, all day, 12 hours a day, daytime. So, it says in the Tractate of Gittin, an amazing thing, 57, side 2. What does this verse mean? That God, we are dying for you all day. This is the mitzvah, commandment of circumcision. This verse in Psalms, Ki alecha horagnu kol hayom. We take our lives, our blood, for you, God, all day. This is talking specifically about the commandment of circumcision, that when we do the procedure of circumcision, we're taking blood as if this is a sign of killing someone, so to speak. So the Torah understands that this commandment of circumcision is a tremendous commandment, because it's the Jewish people sacrificing, giving of themselves, giving their blood, taking blood, spilling blood of themselves for the commandment of God's will. It's an amazing thing. So, to spilling blood, that's a certain amount of harshness, insensitivity, cruelty, to go ahead and do that. So therefore, folks, the title, as we asked, banning circumcision, any truth to it? Fact is that there is a certain streak, small. very narrow streak of truth to that. In order for a Jew to go ahead and perform circumcision on a little baby of 8 days old, and as a godfather, you gotta hold these little 8-day-old baby. You gotta hold their legs so nothing happens, nothing goes wrong, nothing moves when the procedure is taking place. And you gotta, and the baby, 8 days old, is kind of like, earthquaking it. Get me out of here. There must be 50 ways to get out of here. And you gotta hold tight so there's no, God forbid, there's not any damage done here. So what is needed in such a process as circumcision, you need to look beyond, okay, the few seconds here and understand the tremendous blessing and depth behind this commandment and benefit and beauty behind it. But for those few seconds, we have to bring out of ourselves this harshness that we were created with. And it's made so we use it in a place of a commandment, of a mitzvah, like circumcision. So yes, there is a streak, 0.1% truth in this sign of circumcision is cruelty. This is exactly why Abraham was given the commandment such as circumcision, or such as tossing his son Ishmael out of the house, or sacrificing his son in Jerusalem in the Temple Mount. He was given these commandments that needed a certain degree of harshness, callousness, of cruelty, in order that he would be balanced. Because these traits were created for a purpose. Also within Abraham, he was a person that was tremendously kind. But God still created even in the most kind people. You know, sometimes when you're around animal lovers, they're not too pleasant around people. Not too pleasant around people, those animal lovers. You know, for their dog, or, they'll run over a few people in order to help out their dog. So, why is that? It's understandable. Because their love, there's only a certain amount of love that every human being was created with. And if you're using it in the wrong places, then you don't have enough for the right places. It's a problem. Okay, so we saw these 4 places where cruelty is needed. Now, hold on over here. The Shem Mishmol, in an amazing point. We don't need information that the trip took 3 days. In those days, they had different types of transportation. What are we supposed to learn from that? Wrong. If it says something in the Torah, how many days it took, there's something to be learned. And he takes an amazing idea. We know that there's a law. When there's a woman that converts to Judaism, we have to wait 3 months to make sure that she's not pregnant. Because if she's pregnant, that means that the child will be not Jewish. So we wait. We do not convert her immediately. We wait for a 3-month period, which is a dividing line between non-Jew and Jewish. So in Torah, 3 days always represents a new identity. Something, for example, it says that the Jewish people will not be endangered for more than 3 days. That's a subject in itself, but just they give a concept of that once 3 days are over, then we start a new period of time, totally different, separated from the first. So what's the idea here? Vishem Mishmuel, the commentator, says an amazing thing. That there was a need for the Abraham of old, who was 100% or 120% love, kindness. That was his only flag. There's a need to separate. That was Abraham of then. And now we have a new Abraham. We have a balanced Abraham. Now he's going, after 3 days, he will slaughter his son because God commanded him to do that. Eventually he didn't do it. That wasn't the intention of God. But the idea here is an amazing thing, that we are faced now with a totally new entity, identity of Abraham. It's not the Abraham of old. It's a new person, a new body here, a new soul, a new outlook on life. Balanced. Now, Abraham knows and is willing to also use cruelty and harshness and callousness and sensitivity. He's mixing it in with his worshiping of God. He's becoming complete. Amazing point by the Shem Shmuel. The Gra, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, goes further in an amazing line. He says this in 2 places. One, in Genesis chapter 22, when it comes to the Akedah, the slaughtering of Isaac. He says this also in Deuteronomy 22:6. 2 places. They're a little different, not the same line. But shortly, just in a short time, we'll go over his point. Amazing point. The Gra says, I don't understand the verse. It says in the end of Vayera, end of chapter 22, it says, now I know that Abraham is a God-fearing person. Say what? Abraham is God-fearing? You didn't figure it out yet? You didn't get it yet, right? The sun is not shine on your intellect. What is this? Now I know Abraham is a God-fearing person. What has he done until now? His great kindness, bringing people in, giving them food free. His modesty. He didn't even recognize his own wife. Tremendous things about Abraham. We can go on all day. What's going on here? The Gra says. Amazing line. He says the following. When a person has one characteristic trait that he continues always and delves into this one characteristic trait, even though it's a good trait, that does not mean that he is a God-fearing person. When do we know if a person is really God-fearing? Because that's just the nature of a person. Some people were born more kind than others. Some people are more insensitive than others. There's different strokes for different folks. Some people are born as natural athletes. Some people are tripping all over themselves. So that doesn't mean anything. To use a natural characteristic trait, that's just doing what I believe is correct or what I feel comfortable with. That doesn't mean you're God-fearing. So the Gra, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, says, when do we know a person's God-fearing? Only when we see a person that is using 2 contradictory characteristic traits. When you see a person that on one hand, 5 days a week, he's doing tremendous amounts of kind acts. But one day a week, we see that he's screaming and he's yelling and he's chasing people down the streets. You know that when you see 2 contradictory characteristic traits in one person, that is a God-fearing person. That is a person of truth, not a person who's, I'm whatever comes natural to me. You're worshiping yourself. Now he brings this, the Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, the Gra brings this down in Deuteronomy, amazing lesson. The Talmud tells us in Tractate Blessings, Brachot, page 33, side 2, that if a leader of the prayers calls out to God and says, God, you are so merciful to the birds when you commanded us in the Torah that when a person wants to take the eggs in a nest, well, first you have to chase away the mother bird. You have so much kindness, God, to the mother bird, so she will not have pain to see you taking away the eggs. So just like you have mercy on birds, please, God, have mercy on my community, on the Jewish people, on the world. Such a leader of the prayers, such a cantor, buddy, take a seat. Why? 2 reasons the Talmud gives us. We'll just give one for our class. And that is because a person is turning the Torah. A person is turning God into an image. A person is turning God and the commandments into an image of kindness in their eyes. And God is God. God gives us the Torah, and he gives us commandments, and they are decrees. Why? Don't know. But God's commandments are commandments. They're not merciful, so to speak, and they're not cruel. They're commandments given by God. And once this cantor turns the commandments into being, God only commands us to be merciful, this is not the Torah. There are millions of reasons why we do each commandment. Most of them we do not know. But these are decrees of God. And we must observe them, not turning the commandments into Santa Claus and compassion. That today we have these people, Tikkun Olam. We have them out there and all over the world, in Israel and abroad. And everything is love. Everything is love and more love and compassion and kind. Worshipping themselves, not God. That ain't God's Torah. Is God compassionate? Of course. But also God is the God of vengeance. God is God of zealousness. God is God. So, listen to this, an amazing thing. The Gra brings out the point. There are 2 commandments in all of the Torah that say the reward. Nothing, it doesn't say a reward for 611 commandments. Only 2 says. What are they? One is that if you honor your parents, you will live a long life. That's your reward. And the second is that if you chase away the mother bird before you take the eggs, or the little ones in the nest, then you will have a reward of living a long life. These are the only 2 commandments where the reward is written black and white. So the Gra comes up and he hits it out of the park. Why these 2 commandments? You know why? Because they're total opposites. Because loving your parents is a commandment that anybody understands. Okay? You go into, when I grew up for many years in a black neighborhood. Man, if you called somebody mama, if you said something about some dude's mama, man, those were fighting words, baby. Mama? Whoa, let's do it. Let's do it. And on the other hand, so that's merciful. And the Gra goes, but the commandment to chase away the mother bird. You know what that is? According to the Zohar Kadosh, listen to this, an amazing lesson. When a person chases away the mother bird many, many times, this causes the mother bird to throw herself in the water and commit suicide. Because when he comes back and he doesn't see his little babies, he goes out and drowns himself and commits suicide. That's pretty cruel. Thank you very much, sir. You chased away the mother bird. Yeah, thank you very much. So the Gra says, we have two commandments that tell the reward. And they are polar opposites. One is merciful and the other one is cruelty. Are we okay, Ephraim? Okay. So why is that? Because the same lesson exists. When we want to know if a person is God-fearing, we need two opposite characteristic traits. To worship God with the evil and positive good inclination. We have to worship God with all our characteristic traits. We said that we were created with all of them, and they all have a place and a time and a measurement when to use them. So this is an amazing thing. So we see that is the reason. Up until the time where Abraham is called to sacrifice his son, he's still not considered to be a wholesome Jew, a God-fearing Jew, because he was a man that was created with a nature of being kind. Only after being willing. This idea is also brought down in the end of the portion of Akev. It says in the second to last verse that one must cling to God, ulidaf kabo. And the Ibn Ezra says that a person, this is a tremendous secret. Shh, don't tell anybody, it's a tremendous secret. There's a commentary on the Ibn Ezra called the Avi Ezri. And he says, what's the secret here? That clinging to God. So he says an amazing lesson here. He says that there are very few people that really are connected and cling to God. These people are people that know to use opposite types of characteristic traits, totally opposing opposite traits, to use them during the right time period frame. There are only a few that really know how to worship God and are really considered to be true God-fearing people. And let's look at some of the examples. He says these are people that don't get mixed up, that don't bring out the wrong characteristic trait at the wrong time. A person has to bring out all the characteristic traits in their right and proper time. These are a few. For example, he says most people, there's a time that a person must be angry, regarding what Ephraim asked at the beginning of the class. So instead of becoming angry like they should at this time, they become merciful. Wrong. It's just because their natural trait, their natural nature is that, so that's why they use it. But this is not what God wants. God wants a person to use his anger against criminals and against people that are doing bad things. Or, for example, there are people, instead of being proud, standing up straight, all of a sudden they are humble. Why are they humble? Because that's who they are naturally. But God is, if we want to worship God and not ourselves, then we have within us that haughtiness that is to be used at certain minimal amounts of times. Or when a person is called, a Jew is called to use vengeance. And instead of using vengeance, they use mercy. Not proper. A Jew that knows how to use and combine and separate all their characteristic traits. These are the great people, he writes. These are the few and great. Okay. Summarizing the class. We have to understand that when God gives us a commandment, it's a commandment. Is it merciful? Is it cruel? Is it both? Is it a mixture? God gives commandments. God gives decrees, and we must fulfill them. Do we understand? What seems to us sometimes to be cruel might be merciful. Somebody gives you a no answer. It seems to be cruel. A year goes by, 5 years goes by, 10 years. Wow, thank God that guy gave me a no answer, or I would be up the creek today. So do we even understand what's merciful and what's cruel? Even our own lives, we're not able to understand, is this merciful, is this cruel? So what God tells us is correct. It is a decree, and it is the right thing to do, and it will bring upon us a blessing. Whether we need to use a characteristic trait which is a little bit foreign to us, or use a characteristic trait which comes to us more naturally. But we have to understand that God, and only God, when He commands us, His commandments bring tremendous blessings in this world, spiritual and also physical. So if God commands us to perform circumcision, though we need to overcome our kindness, though we need to use our cruelty, our callousness, our insensitivity in order to do it. It's similar to a person goes into a hospital and there's a kid and we have to give the person a shot. But the kid is freaking out. He's yelling at the top of his lungs. He's giving everybody a headache. So does the doctor say, you know what? You know, you're in danger here of losing your leg. So, but because you're crying and you're kicking and you're throwing punches, we're just going to let you out of the office? No way. Let's tie the kid down, and we're going to give him this shot in order to save his leg. So we have to differentiate, we have to understand. Doctor is not cruel. Doctor is actually kind, because he's trying to save this person's leg. When a doctor does a surgery, and people are screaming and cursing them out left and right. You know, there's many hospitals in Israel. It says zero tolerance for violence against doctors, because a lot of times doctors, you know, they take a few punches and family members are not too thrilled about what's going on. It's difficult. It's not a very pleasant. Go to a dentist. They're not the most top 10 popular people on your list to go to. They do the dirty work. Are they cruel? Are they harsh, insensitive? No. These are people, they have to use this exterior cruelness and harshness just like a judge. When a judge has to throw somebody into prison, is he being cruel? No, he's not being cruel at all. But in order to achieve the goal of mercy for all the population, there's a need to step down here. So everything in the Torah is for our benefit, whether we see it or not. Today, tomorrow, in 100 years, whatever. It's our spiritual benefit, and it's our physical benefit. Today we are learning so many things, tremendous lessons that we learn in life, that we see the greatness of the Torah thousands of years before scientists even woke up. So we see this. So let's look at the spiritual benefits. We could spend a few days. You could look, it says in the tractate of Nidarim, page 31, side 2, it says that when a person is circumcised, that brings upon 13 covenants with the Jewish people. Imagine that. You make a covenant with God. Not one covenant, 13. Every circumcision, there is this covenant. There is this connecting with God in 13 different ways. The Zohar Kadosh writes, when a person is circumcised, he brings to the world compassion and mercy. Amazing. Even though we need the exterior harshness in order to hold this kid down, and it's not too pleasant to have to chop him up, but this brings down to the world not cruelness, it's not cruelty, it's not child rape, it's not child abuse. It's the exact opposite. It brings to the world kindness. So there's spirituality and also physicality. Not only that, we have a video here, and this is a tip of the iceberg. You could look it up in many, many places, the benefits, the physical benefits. How many diseases you stay away from if you have this circumcision. So it's all over. You can just look at it. But we have a video over here. It gives some of the benefits. I'll just read to you here. The American Academy of Pediatrics say the health benefits of male circumcision far outweighs the risks. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention says doctors should educate infant boys' parents about the health benefits of circumcision, which it says reduces the transmission of sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV. So you have the American Academy of Pediatrics. The health benefits outweigh the risk. And we have the United States Center for Disease Control telling us that parents should be educated. We're not talking about Jews here. We know that 30% of the world, not Jewish, 30% of the world today are circumcised. So the last message to you out there. In Europe or in America, these organizations that demonstrate bleeding men, let me tell you something. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have sacrificed their lives, given up their lives in order to circumcise their children. Their lives. Do you think that a person is cruel? These people were cruel? A person loves, no matter who you are, Jewish, Gentile, black, blue, whatever. Everyone loves their child. No one wants to hurt their child. No one. A parent loves their child. And for thousands of years, folks, all you organizations out there trying to ban circumcision. For thousands of years, parents, brothers and sisters gave their lives, endangered themselves, and gave up their lives in order to perform circumcision. Even if that child was going to live for a second more, but he would have a circumcision, they endangered themselves. Thousands, hundreds and thousands of Jews throughout the generations, Hanukkah time, and throughout Jewish history, it says by our sages, based on a verse in book of Exodus, those that love me, and it says, those that love me, who are these people? Those that sacrifice their lives and circumcise their children in the land of Israel. This is the time of the Romans, when it was forbidden for Jews to circumcise. So folks, Jews love their children like anybody else. No Jew is going to be cruel to their children. We are commanded by God. A commandment of God, this is truth, this is compassion, this is true mercy, this is goodness. And if you don't understand that, well, you can all go to hell.